Hey boys and girls, welcome to this week's art lesson. So we're going to continue working on our farm scene, and a lot of you guys have sent me pictures of what you've done so far, and I'm really super impressed and glad to hear that you guys are enjoying this project. I love this project too. So last week we did our farmhouse, hill number 1, fence number 1. And then this week we're going to talk about hill number 2, fence number 2, and all the way back far away in the distance, hill number 3, and tiny little fence number 3. And maybe you might want to add a tree here and there or some kind of faraway detail in the background. So when you're talking about things that are all the way in the back, you call it the background. This hill, this would be mid-ground, middle ground, and foreground. And last week we talked about when you're trying to add depth, so we were trying to make it look like this picture is kind of going into the paper, you have to make the objects that are in the foreground the biggest and the most details with the brightest colors. And then the farther away back you go into the distance, the smaller, and the colors kind of fade, okay? Because you can't really see the detail of the colors when you're that far away. We might get into some shading, but we're gonna, again, break this down so that you're not doing too much each week, because I want you guys to do your best and take your time. Okay, so here we go. So here is my farm from last week. And this week I'm going to try to fit in a hill here and maybe another one back here. And everybody is going to have to figure out a different solution as to how to get those two hills to fit, because if you did your farmhouse a little higher, you're going to have less room, okay? So let's say your farmhouse is really high, and I just want to talk about that first. Like maybe you made your hill a little extra high, which is fine. And here's my farmhouse. I just want to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing here. Yep, okay. Let me push a little harder. This is not going to be my best work. I'm just trying to give you guys a little example of what might happen. Okay, so let's say that's it, all right? There's my farmhouse. I don't have a lot of room above my farmhouse to fit those two hills. So in this situation, you have a few options. You might need to jump over that farmhouse. So here I go, I'm coming in, and I don't want to start all the way up here because I need room for that last farmhouse and I want to put a sun. So here would be a better choice, and I'm going to come along and I'm going to jump. Let me try that again. I'm going to come along a little darker. I don't know if you can see. And I'm going to jump and continue, okay? And then my third hill can maybe come from the other side. So I'm going to come down, jump over, and continue. So that is a little tricky. Notice something. First hill, I started on this side and went down. Second, this side. Third, this side. So you're kind of alternating sides when you start. This side down, this side. So it's kind of like making a zigzag. And that's kind of a good way to go about it. So that's what you would do if you don't have a ton of room. You're going to have to jump over the farmhouse. So on this one, I started on this side and went down. So that means I'm now over here and I'm going to go down. So I do have a little bit of room to kind of make two hills that go over my farmhouse. Let's see what happens. I don't really know yet. Oh, it just made it. Just made it over my farmhouse. So there's hill number 2. And then I'm going to come in from the other side. This one's going to be a little skinnier, and it could stop there. It can go all the way. It could stop here. Okay, they don't have to be so long. Okay, and there's my 3 hills. I'm going to decide where my sun is. And then I can decide if I'm going to put trees and stuff later. But first, it's a good idea to draw that fence. Okay, so here we go. How did we draw the fence? We draw another line really close. Now notice that when I did this fence, the space in between the hill and the fence was about this big. But when I'm doing the faraway fence, that space is going to get a little smaller. So stay closer. I did an overlap. I overlapped right here, so I have to erase that part of the third hill, okay? And then I'll go in and I'll add the parts of the fence in a minute. But when you do your very far away fence, that line is gonna get even skinnier. So you can see as the farther back I go, the spaces in between the hill and the fence everything is gonna start to get smaller, okay? So now I'm gonna put in that second line. I have another overlap right here. I'm going a little fast, so I am making some mistakes. And one more right there. This one's the toughest one. You have to go really slow. Even I'm going too fast. Really, really skinny fence. It's very far away, okay? Now I'm gonna start putting in the vertical parts of my fence. 2 parallel lines, jump, line, jump. I don't know if you remember, but we decided last week that this was where if a person were standing and looking at this scene, they'd probably be standing here. This is the closest part. You could see the hills coming right into where we're standing. So the fence over here can just get a little bit bigger when you get to this side. Line, line, jump, line, line, jump, line, line, jump. Okay, and the top. This fence on this side should not be as big as these. They should be smaller. So if you catch yourself making some big ones, just slow down and remember to make them smaller. It's not going to be perfect, but we're doing our best. And go slower than I'm going. I'm going too fast. And now the really small one. So you can see that one looks really far away. And I'm pushing lighter with my pencil when I do that far away fence. Oh yeah, and by the way, these do not have to be triangular. These could be round too. I saw some people did round. That's totally fine. There's my far away fence. So this is already starting to pull together pretty nicely. So this is the main thing that I would like you guys to do this week. And if you want to, we can start talking about things that you want to put on these hills. It is a little tricky, but if you can think back to when I taught you how to put a candle in your cake or candy in your cake, it's kind of the same idea because you wanted to make it look like the tree is going into the ground. Remember that sideways squiggle we talked about? Something's going in. And it's not a tree in the front, so it's not going to be huge. It's going to be like mid-sized. I'm overlapping. When you overlap, you erase what's behind it. We don't want to see that fence coming through the tree. That would not make any sense. So the fence stops, jumps over the tree, and continues. And just make a little cloud-like shape for the top of that tree. So that would be a medium tree. If this tree were in the front, it would be pretty big, you know, because the trees are usually a little taller than the house, so it would be pretty big. I'm not going to put anything here. Maybe next week I'll add some little details in the grass. And if a tree goes back here, there's that little S, it would be really small. And don't forget to do your erasing when you overlap. Do you have to do trees? Nope. But I think it's fun to try at least one, especially when they're all the way back here, because it really does add some character to the drawing. So that's it for this week. So these are choices. You don't have to. If you feel like taking that extra challenge, try to put a medium and a small. You could put more than one if you want to put a bunch of little tiny trees, one really small one all the way back here. It could be fun to try. I need to erase. But I do think it's gonna take you some time this week to figure out how to get these two fences in here. Are you gonna have to jump over the house? Or are you gonna be able to fit them over the house? So remember though, it goes this way, then this way, then this way. Next week, we'll talk about cast shadows and shading, and that's it. So have fun, take your time, do your best, and we'll see you next week.